Hey guys, don't you just want me to talk about another Transformers movie? Another Transformers movie? Wow, on this episode of Rotten Reviews, I'm going to take a look at the 2017 film Transformers: The Last Knight. It has a 15% on the tomato meter and a 44% on the audience score. Does somebody still pay money to see Transformers films? Well, this has 39,638 audience reviews, so somebody's paying attention to this franchise. And, I thought I had said my piece on this when I did a rotten review on the second Transformers movie. And I thought I would just let that stand as my final statement on the Transformers franchise and what I thought about it. But nope, this popped up and I just happened to be in the right time and place to watch it. And it has a huge running time of 2 hours and almost 2.5 hours on that running time. And I sat through this entire thing, put myself through the punishment, got pulled back into this whole mess, and now I'm here talking about Transformers again. And I'm almost doing this against my will, but I'm going to go ahead and push through. And first, I want to take a look back at what I mean by Transformers franchise. We have the Transformers movies as listed by Rotten Tomatoes. Let's start back in time. We have the first one from 2007, 58% rotten. The second one, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, 2009, 20% rotten. That's the one I hoped would be my one and only statement on the Transformers, but it didn't work out. So we can move up to 2011. We have Transformers Dark of the Moon, 35% rotten. Transformers Age of Extinction, 2014, 18% rotten. That's where Mark Wahlberg comes into the picture, unfortunately. And then we're going to take a look at this movie right here, Transformers The Last Knight, 2017, 15% rotten, dropping even further. Again, Mark Wahlberg needing to get paid again, and Anthony Hopkins decided to tag along too this time, and we'll talk about that. And then look at this, Bumblebee 2018, the newest in the franchise, 92% certified fresh. Well, we may or may not talk about Bumblebee in the future, but I'll put money on the fact that it's better in every way, just about, than Transformers The Last Knight. And that's the one we're talking about today. Now, critics, well, obviously they don't like Transformers movies, and I can't say I really like them either. I mean, I'm a fan of the first one. When the first Transformers movie came out, I probably watched it like 8 or 9 times when it was on home video. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought the humor worked. I thought Shia LaBeouf, as weird as he became later, I thought he really was cast perfectly in the role. It worked for the story. I found it to be the perfect blend of action and comedy, and I didn't take it serious, but I really enjoyed the hell out of it. I may or may not have mentioned this in my last little speech or diatribe on the Transformers, but I'm just recapping it here for you because I'm not against the concept of Transformers. I don't have a problem with Hasbro and their toy franchise, so to speak. But, this one, it was really tough sitting through it. It felt like torture watching the whole thing. And it was very beautiful torture. The visual effects are fantastic. I can't say I find them off-putting or bad. The visual effects, very expensive, state-of-the-art. They're probably going to hold up quite well over time because there's just a lot of effort and care put into those visual effects. But the story is just a long, drawn-out slog, and I can't even imagine that kids could keep their attention span focused on this through that 2.5 hour running time without wanting to go do something else. And you have to kind of consider that this movie, even though it's a toy-based movie from Hasbro, it is made for adults because only an adult would be able to sit their ass in that chair for so long in that theater and just continue to watch this thing. And I'm an adult. I'm a 40-something-year-old adult, and I put myself through this, and let's get right into the audience reviews. And we're going to have a whole lot to talk about probably because it's a Transformers movie, so we're going to find a lot of problems here. But anyway, our first review from one day ago. meaning this is from probably December 28th of 2019. 1.5 star. Jesus HFUCK. This movie starts off being decent, but then goes downhill after 20 minutes. This film makes up Age of Extinction and Revenge of the Fallen look like Citizen Kane. Okay. If I had to put a star rating on this, I would put it at like, yeah, I would agree, 1.5 stars, not quite reaching 2. And I put it at 1.5 just because of the sheer quality of the visual effects. I consider that nice. The sheer quality of the audio effects, not necessarily the score, but the actual effects, you know, the explosions, the machinery, all that stuff going on. It's fantastic. It's the best quality that you could ask for. There's no flaws to be found there to speak of. So I give it 1.5 stars just for visual and audio spectacle. As far as everything else, the plot, the theme, the story, the logic, no, I consider that a complete 0 or a fail. But let's move on. 6 days ago, half a star. Here we go again. No, no, and no. Here we go again. It's right. That's what I thought when I started watching this thing, but I got through it somehow. 1 star, December 21, 2019. It took me 2 years to watch it, and I will always regret it. This franchise died on the first movie. Why did they think it was a good idea to make a 5th one? Well, people are still paying money to see this. Definitely, there's no question about that. If we go back to the actual first page here, it will give us the box office number. $130 million at the box office. Well, I don't know what it cost to produce it, but this is certainly the worst one according to Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm imagining that even if this didn't make a lot of money, all the others made enough because they just keep pumping these things out. That's my answer for why it keeps going. And I would imagine that this is such a cash machine for Hasbro, just because even if the movie barely breaks even, it's still like solid toy promotion. I mean, think of all the toys that are being sold at the toy store and just at the toy aisle in Walmart and everywhere else. Every time one of these movies comes out, the toys are going to sell, no question about that. The toys actually look to be of pretty good quality because I've seen them myself, and they're not really bad toys. They look like toys that I would have wanted to play with as a little kid. And so even if this movie's a fail for the moviegoers, it's straight up toy promotion, no question about it. 1 star, December 18, 2019. 3 hours of disappointment. Most of the entertaining scenes can be seen in all Transformers 5 trailer. The rest is stuffed with prolonged human plot, forced comedy, World War II Nazis, and tons of advertisement, which is more than the total transformation throughout the movie. The Last Night not only has no connection with the previous Transformers trilogy, it also has no connection throughout the movie itself. As usual, Michael Bay and his screenwriters decided to add in cliche jokes. Yeah, it's a lot of robot transformers cracking jokes endlessly with each other. Every single scene of this movie is transformers of every description and type and size just joking around with each other. There's not like more than one serious line between any of these robot creatures. It's always got to be just straight up joking around. It's like you're trapped inside of a junior high school locker room with a lot of the bad language censored out, and just endless amounts of just teenagers standing around telling each other wise ass jokes. It's completely overdone. But again, I guess this is what people want to see that actually pay money for this. That's my guess. Yes, it has World War II Nazis. It has King Arthur. It has Merlin. It has dinosaurs. It has dragons. If there was something they forgot about, shame on them, because they just about put every type of thing mythological that you could put into this thing at the same time and tried to make it all work in one plot. And you even have Anthony Hopkins show up, and he has a transformer robot sidekick butler. And you know, I'll say that's the only thing that actually got a laugh out loud of me. I went through this whole film, and it wasn't until I saw Anthony Hopkins and his robot butler driving around together, kind of cracking one-liners with each other. I actually laughed at some of that. But that was such a small part of this 2 hour and a half movie. Maybe I laughed at like 5 minutes of that. Anthony Hopkins, I don't know what he got paid, but him and his butler, I laughed at some of their stuff. I wish I would have laughed at all the other stuff. I would have rated this high as a comedy. But no, it's just like most of the stupid comedy is just stuff that only a 12-year-old would find, funny. And again, that's probably Hasbro in action, toy marketing. And this reviewer brings up product placement. Yeah, there's a lot of that, where Mark Wahlberg's character's in his junkyard house, so to speak. And there's a lot of like straight up product placement right in there in a 10-minute section or so. It's right in your face. I don't know how much money that came out of that, but it's just straight up in your face product ads. There's probably a bunch of it throughout the movie, but just the scene in Mark Wahlberg's junkyard house is just wow. It's just right in your face. Let's move on. December 17, 2019, half a star. I got lost 15 minutes into the movie. Didn't understand what was happening except for catching notice of the scene changes and watching people and robots with bad designs fight over a staff in a time space of plus 2 hours or so. This movie is so bad that I don't know why I watched it in the first place. Yeah, I didn't really know what the hell was going on either. The movie opens like what looks like a passably good medieval Knights of the Round Table type adventure, and actually no Transformers showed up until a dragon showed up at the end of that. And actually that was kind of interesting, and it kind of started off as a totally different kind of movie, and I was like, hey, this looks like a decent, like it's going to be a decent medieval sword and shield fantasy type thing. And then of course I knew I was watching a Transformers movie, so I knew it wasn't going to last, and sure enough it didn't. Merlin the wizard shows up, and Merlin's cracking one-liner jokes and talking like he came out of modern day America, and he's cracking jokes at his own jokes, like almost breaking the fourth wall as Merlin. And he has a meeting with a Transformer robot and his UFO that have crashed in a cave. And the narrator during this, which I can't recall who the narrator character is, but there's a voiceover narrator during this at points. And the narrator actually tells the audience that Merlin encountered aliens, and straight up calls them aliens. So Merlin is shown that Merlin knows what aliens are, and they come from different planets, and he meets with one who's a Transformer in a cave, and that's where he gets his magical powers and tricks from meeting with this Transformer in the cave that he knows is an alien from Cybertron. And it wouldn't be so off-putting if it wasn't for the fact that Merlin makes modern jokes and cracks jokes at his own jokes. And what? I mean, it's not even that funny. I wish it were. I could have laughed, but I see what it's trying to do, but the humor just doesn't work. It just feels weird. And the narrator's got the same type of weird humor going on too, while we're seeing this stuff that visually is supposed to look serious and whatnot. And it's got medieval battles going on, and it looks serious, but at the same time it's got like a weird comedy narrator. It's very weird. Okay, so then it goes right from that to a scene where Mark Wahlberg is rescuing this annoying young girl from some kind of forbidden zone in a modern American city that's been devastated by Transformers warring against each other. And I had no idea what the hell was going on. I actually was like, what in the hell is going on? Who are these people? Who are these kids? Who is this dumb blue robot sidekick that doesn't look like a Transformer, looks like a homemade robot that's in the mix with this young girl? And why is she trying to run around with Transformers in this forbidden zone? And why is Mark Wahlberg in there trying to get involved and rescue her? And what the hell is he doing in there? I was so confused. I didn't know what the fuck to make of all this. Anyway, I sympathized with other people that were totally lost at what was going on. Eventually, I kind of figured out what was going on, but this movie had such a running time. I guess it figured, well, in 2 hours and 30 minutes, we'll pretty much get everybody on board with what's going on. But yeah, it was so long. I think maybe 30 minutes into it, I knew everything that was going on, but I almost didn't care by that point. They're just throwing so many things in there. Um, Half a star, December 12, 2019. Movie with a bad story, stupid humor, and typical Bay-former movie and not a Transformer movie. Yeah, it's Michael Bay. You know, when I go back to this page showing you all the movies, what does it say for director of every single one that's rotten? Michael Bay, Michael Bay, Michael Bay, Michael Bay, Michael Bay. Ah, and then when we get to the 92% certified fresh movie, Bumblebee from 2018, what do we see where it says director? Uh-oh. It isn't Michael Bay, it's Travis Knight. Well, I don't know who Travis Knight is, but he managed to produce a movie that Rotten Tomatoes says is certified fresh. Wonder what happened with Michael Bay. It's like, you know how people make mistakes, they learn on the job, and it's just normal. You know, if you're an apprentice at some, you know, even an apprenticed electrician or plumber, uh, he's an apprentice. That's why he's not a master, right? That's why he's not a journeyman or a master, because he's still learning the craft. Well, especially first week on the job, you're expected to learn from your mistakes, right? That's human. But Michael Bay, I don't know, maybe he's a robot, he's not human, and he's not programmed correctly, because he doesn't seem to be learning from his mistakes. Like, if you look at the first Transformers from 2007, 58% rotten. So you would think, oh, on the next one he's gonna fix that up a bit, right? Nope. Next one went down to 20% rotten, and then he got up to 35, and then he went right back down to 18 and 15% rotten. So obviously, as a filmmaker, he's not really concerned about making good films, because he's human, right? So you know he's learning from his mistakes. He's refining his craft. He's made so many good movies that I even consider really good, great movies, outstanding. He's done great jobs on those. But with Transformers, he just can't seem to learn how to get out of the rotten category. I don't think that's it. I think he's doing exactly what Hasbro told him to do. Now, how Travis Knight, whoever that is, managed to please Hasbro and produce a movie that was certified fresh, maybe that should be looked into. Maybe that's going to be the subject of one of my rotten reviews. Something to think about, right? But obviously, Michael Bay isn't going to make it better. If he produces yet another Transformers movie, put in Mark Wahlberg, put in Donnie Wahlberg, put in I don't know, throw in everybody but the kitchen sink, and I'll bet you it's still around a 18 to 15% rotten, because he's obviously going with that formula. He's going to do what he's going to do. He hasn't changed. So don't ever expect to have a movie like the first Transformers ever again. Not from Michael Bay. He's just not going to do it. In fact, he probably considers that one to be not quite what he was looking for. I'm thinking that this movie, The Dark Knight, is what he was actually shooting for the entire time, and he's finally, maybe when he gets the next one, if he does another one, maybe he will do another Transformers movie, and it will hit like 5% on the critics, and then he will be considering his work to be complete. Anyway, December 10th, half a star. Wow. Did Michael Bay even saw some of the Transformers cartoons? Just not into none of them. Only like Transformers, the first one, that's it. This one can't watch any more than an hour. Bad, bad, bad. Again, I'm just going to tell this reviewer what I basically spent a lot of time saying. I think Michael Bay has got his formula down, and he's going to drive that thing all the way to 2% rotten if he gets, you know, his final product perfected. I think the first Transformers movie, it wasn't exactly what he thought Hasbro wanted, and he's further refined that. Again, maybe it's the toy sales. If you go back and look at, somebody had the numbers on Hasbro's toy sales for Transformers, I'll bet you see those toy sales actually went up the more rotten those films got, because I think that's the actual point to this. So anyway, 2 stars, December 6, 2019. Standard Michael Bay, slow-mo, swirling cameras, helicopter shots, obnoxious product placement, standard Transformers sequel, incoherent action, incoherent plot, way long, needlessly complicated, one bright spot, Anthony Hopkins is a hoot. Yeah, I agree with everything this reviewer said. Anthony Hopkins, he's the only part of this movie that got me to laugh. despite everything being filled with jokes. He was funny in this. It should have started, in fact, it should have led with Anthony Hopkins, not introduced him further into the running time. It should have started with him, not Mark Wahlberg. But anyway, December 3rd, half a star. Explosions are cool and all, but my God, I didn't think they could ever be made. Boring. Yeah, the most visually spectacular, boring thing I've seen. Well, except for Mortal Engines. I think Mortal Engines gave this a run for its money as far as being visually spectacular, but you want to fast forward through it despite that. I think Mortal Engines and this are like in the running for stunning to look at, but very boring. November 3rd, 2019, half a star, bad. Left the theater laughing, so bad. Well, at least you laughed. I mean, I hardly got anything out of this to laugh at, unfortunately. November 7, 2019, 1.5 stars, disappointment and waste of time. November 5th, half a star, I hate this movie and it is a disgust to its franchise. October 28, 1 star. I could barely stand 40 minutes of this flick and I had to quit. It was just downright boring and silly. Special effects cannot save a bad movie. I just streamed some more intelligent sci-fi of another free movie on Amazon Prime. Not surprised the critics panned this flop. Wished I had my 40 minutes back. 1.5 stars, October 24. Transformers The Last Knight, in my opinion, had some crazy potential, but was killed but awful writing. This entire story just sucked, but the concept of the Decepticons' plan could have been huge. This entire franchise needs a major rejuvenation and breath of fresh air. Well, in this film, it is like they ran out of ideas because in this one, there's like a Transformer queen, and she's the source of all the energon energy that started the whole Transformer civilization. She's like the queen that started it all. I don't recall what her name is, and I don't even care. I don't even think I knew when I was watching the movie, but she's like a little Transformer queen that floats in the air in the remains of Cybertron, and she needs to, of course, turn the Earth into Cybertron, and we've seen this all before with different villains. And it doesn't really matter because in the end she's going to be defeated just like all the other villains. You just don't know how much crazy CGI explosions are going to be necessary to defeat her. And forget about plot logic. I mean, we threw that out the window with the first Transformer movie. Yeah, you've got like scenes in which the human characters, notably played by Josh Duhamel, he's back again. His hair is even more ridiculous from a military point of view. His hair has gotten more and more ridiculous with each Transformers movie. I mean, he's this military veteran, and in the first Transformers movies, he had a military haircut. And as we've gone on, now he's at the point in this movie where he's got some kind of 1980s punk-looking haircut, but he's a soldier, and it's just completely stupid. And he's there, this military veteran, and he's spouting off endless amounts of military jargon as everybody else is, because that's how you convince kids that you're dealing with the military, is to spout off endless amounts of military jargon. Cliched Hollywood military jargon at that. And he spouts off plenty of it, and at one point in the big battle, he says, well, we have to take out that main gun because it's just tearing us to pieces. But he says stuff like that, but the main gun, despite firing off thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition in their direction, has not managed to hit them or hurt them or scratch them in any capacity. So I don't understand how it's just tearing them to pieces. And there's just dialogue like that and action like this where nobody ever gets a scratch, nobody ever gets hurt. Even the Transformer, good guy Transformer robots, they never hardly get hurt either, despite acting and talking like it's a pitched battle and they're so scared they're going to get hurt. Nobody ever gets hurt. It's like kids playing with Transformers dolls, life-size Transformers toys. Do the kids really get hurt? Do their toys get hurt? Even their toys don't get hurt that often. Maybe a piece breaks off once in a while. They can glue it back in. But I'm sorry, there's no actual tension here. It's completely ridiculous. But the dialogue the dialogue between the soldiers is like they're in the middle of a battle where they're actually going to get hurt. And you see some soldiers fly around, an explosion happens and soldiers like fly away like they've been, pummeled away by an explosive concussion effect, and then somehow they're getting up, dusting themselves off. They never really get a scratch. And this whole movie's like that, despite the dialogue and the screaming and shouting like they're in some kind of real battle. And it's just like you watch this for an hour plus and you're just like wanting to fast forward it. But in the theater, you can't, so I don't know what you do in the theater. I guess in the theater, you just pull out your phone and maybe your phone's muted and you just start playing Candy Crush or something and hope nobody's like disturbed by the glow of your phone. I don't know. I really wouldn't know what to do if I was in the theater being tortured by this. At home, you can just fast forward it or do something else real quick, go get a drink or go to the bathroom. But in any case, let's move on. October 24th, 1.5 stars. Transformers The Last Night, in my opinion, had some crazy potential, but was killed by awful writing. This entire story just sucked, but the concept of the Decepticons' plan could have been huge. Okay, I think I just read that one, but it's not like I couldn't read it again, right? 1 star, October 20th, garbage, not worth writing anything else. 1 star, a giant mess, easily the worst film Michael Bay has ever done. There is nothing enjoyable about this overlong toy commercial. Garbage CGI, bland characters, terrible acting, no story, no memorable scenes, 2 hours and 35 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. Please avoid this movie at all costs. Well, I'll agree with all of that except garbage CGI. No, I think the CGI was just fine. The quality of it was just fine. It was great. It was up to all modern standards. It's just that the usage of the CGI, the overusage of it, you're just thrown, endless amounts of it are thrown at you. So if you mean that's what makes it garbage, then yes. But quality-wise, no, no, no. Quality-wise, the CGI, the visual effects are up to and exceeding industry standards. Let's call it that. 0.5 star, October 6th. With the first 4 movies as bad as they are, it at least felt like they were trying to make a good movie, trying and failing, but trying nonetheless. This movie, however, it doesn't even feel like they are trying. I went into this movie thinking it possibly couldn't be any worse than Transformers 4, but Michael Bay never seems to disappoint. 1 out of 10. Yeah, I think he's dialing it more precisely to what he wants with each movie, and this one got as close as any one of his previous movies because it's about selling toys. It's not about him getting Academy Awards. No, no, no. I think he knows what he's doing. But let's take a look at my list. One of the big problems that even, knowing it's a Transformers film, it just kind of took me out of it. It has a battle sequence in which Mark Wahlberg and his young girl sidekick, they're battling robots. And at one part, they're shown to be in some small Midwestern-looking town. It's all around them. They're in this, it could be a small Midwestern town, population less than 1,000 or around 1,000. And then all of a sudden during the battle, they come out of a window and they're inside a skyscraper, and then they're inside a gigantic 10-story high cathedral of some type of church, and outside of that there's suddenly skyscrapers around them, and then they go through another building and out another glass wall or window, and they're back in the Midwestern town again with no building over 2 stories high around them for any distance for any amount of distance around them. And it's just kind of stupid shit like that that goes on all through the movie. But when it started showing up, that's when I just gave up trying to get into the film. I mean, I knew it was a Transformers movie and I shouldn't expect too much. But when we, rolled out of a window at one part, and we're from the Midwestern town, and we're in the middle of skyscrapers now, and then we're back in the Midwestern town again, that's when I just said, okay, here we go again, right? Like that opening review said that I read, here we go again. You can't take any of this serious, and that's when I realized that at 2 hours and 35 minutes, it was going to be tough to get through this. But let's move on. 2.5 stars. Amazing CGI as usual, but the plot seems like it is made up as the movie progresses. Yeah, kind of. I think it knew where it was going, but it needed to just fill the running time with endless battles and jokes, and so it kind of was like a snake in the garden, just winding its way all over through the garden until it made its way to its final hole in the end of the garden. And it knew where it was going, but it wanted to take the scenic route, so to speak. 1 star, September 29th, not English. Too bad. 3.5 stars, not going to read it. 1.5 stars, September 16. Ugh, painful, even for a huge Transformers fan. 2 stars, September 9th. So many WTF moments. The editing really is distracting once you realize the aspect ratio keeps changing sometimes from shot to shot. So many plot points don't really make sense, and the jokes are often cringy. Yeah, why does that? I noticed that in a few modern films. The aspect ratio of the film, of the scenes changing. And I don't know why that is. Is that supposed to imply some kind of action or change the mood? But it doesn't seem to do that. It just seems to like catch people's eye the wrong way in a lot of these films. So I don't know what's going on with that. This movie had the budget where it could have certainly maintained any image format it wanted, any aspect ratio it wanted, using any type of filming production. So I don't know why that happens. Clearly, it's deliberate, and there's a reason for that. But I don't think it works. It reminds me of the shaky cam thing, that a lot of directors think that using shaky cam is somehow going to pump up some kind of feeling in the movie. But no, it doesn't. It fails. It fails. It fails more times than it succeeds. So it just shouldn't be used. And I don't think it's a good idea to actually change the aspect ratio between shots in a movie. I think that's, if that's an intention, it's a wrong intention. It's not working. 0.5 star, September 8th, 2019. I watched this abomination of a film in theaters. My condolences. I had zero expectations for it, and it still managed to let me down. My recommendation is, if you have zero expectations for a film, don't go and see it in a theater. Why would you do that? Why is that? Like, I guess you're gambling. Are you a gambler? Do you fly to Las Vegas with the intention of deliberately losing $10,000 by the time you leave? Okay, if that's your personality, go ahead and do that. But if I have those kind of expectations for a film, I don't pay money at all to see it. I'm sorry. That's not me. Nothing in this film works. Decades from now, this movie and this franchise as a whole will be used in film courses as an example of how not to do cinema. Absolutely disgusting to watch as a Transformers fan. I kind of disagree, because I think when people look back on this historically, they'll just probably look at the toy sales numbers and declare this to be a success along with all the other movies. That's my thought on it. 0.5 star, September 7. Please stop making Transformers movies. Yeah, I know, but if they stop, we'll have nothing to talk about, right? So I'm kind of hoping Michael Bay does another one, and he can get the audience, he can get the actual, who knows about the audience score, but maybe he can get that critic score down to like in the single digits. He can really dial it in and get the toy sales going, because that's clearly what he's trying to do. 1 star, September 5th. The Bay Farmers train should have stopped with Dark of the Moon, but yet we have this turd in the wind. Yeah, Dark of the Moon, I believe that was the third one, and I've never have gotten all the way through that movie. 2 or 3 times I came across it where I had time to watch it all the way through, and I made a point to say, okay, this time I'm going to get through it. I've never made it more than halfway through Dark of the Moon. Just can't. I just can't. Somehow I made it through this one, though. Let's take a look at my list and see if there's anything I'm missing beyond just the normal stuff people have brought up. Endless Transformers jokes, yes. A lot of exposition to the audience, but that's to be expected with a movie geared towards the younger crowds. You need a lot of the characters to tell the audience a lot of things through their dialogue, but as an adult, it's kind of off-putting. Yeah, Transformers defeated Nazi Germany. Yeah, it kind of makes the statement in this movie that almost every historical, every historical battle every great military victory of the Western world, and particularly of the United States, was kind of pulled off behind the scenes by the work of Transformers. That's what this movie is telling you. And all of the British Empire's military successes as well, those were all pulled off with the helps of Transformers working in the background with this secret society that was kind of in the British military and the British royalty, and moved into the American military at some place. Don't try to put too much logic into it. They're basically just telling you there's this secret society, almost like the Illuminati, and they've been all the successes of Western civilization have been with the help of Autobots in the background, and they've even got pictures and stuff in their Illuminati paraphernalia to prove all of this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It goes along with dinosaurs being there in the thick of it, I guess. Yeah, the ending is as dumb as Independence Day 2, Resurgence. In Independence Day 2, you have this gigantic alien ship that's so huge that just, it has to like land on the Earth, and it's got its own gravitational pull. And this movie tries to do the same thing. Cybertron comes to Earth and actually starts descending and touching the Earth. And it's almost as bad. It doesn't do the gravitational pull stuff, but it's almost that bad. And gigantic pieces of Cybertron are now scraping across the surface of the Earth and wrecking U.S. cities and whatnot. And yeah, it reminded me a lot of Independence Day Resurgence, as bad as that is. Anthony Hopkins and his butler are the only things that made me laugh, as dumb as they were. Um, Yeah, oh yeah, there's a real big plot fail, but not exactly something to, it just kind of passes over most people's heads because you already see all this crap going on, all this stuff going on that's ridiculous in a Transformers movie. But in the final battle, Mark Wahlberg's sidekick, teenage girl, she's been left behind in the desert of California like more than an hour earlier in the film. But suddenly she shows up in the final battle. She's a stowaway on one of the military Osprey vehicles, just so she can be there at the final battle with her sidekick homemade robot. And it doesn't make any sense. It's not explained how she suddenly magically appeared in that Osprey along with her sidekick robot. Nobody noticed her before. She just has to be there at the final battle so that her sidekick homemade robot with a transformer arm grafted onto him can play a pivotal part in the final battle. It's a complete straight up plot hole that's so bad that even it can't be disguised in the context of a Transformers film. That's how bad it is. But the movie doesn't, so much stuff's going on, they can't even attempt to explain it, so they don't try. Yeah, that's my final thing on this because there's just so much stuff you could nitpick in this movie, but why bother? The whole premise of it is stupid. And if you have the stamina to sit through this thing, then more power to you. It's a 148-minute running time, and it looks fantastic visually, but you're all over the place. You're in outer space, you're on the moon, you're on Cybertron, you're at the bottom of the ocean in a gigantic crashed spaceship at the bottom of the ocean. You're with Merlin and King Arthur in ancient times with a crashed spaceship. You're with dragons, Tyrannosauruses, every place and everything you can imagine is thrown into this thing. And so, believe me, it's all in there. And I'll have to call this one and just say 44% on the audience score. Well, somebody's paying to see this, but it could be 24% and it would still be fair. But yeah, let's hope that Michael Bay does another one out there and he dials it in even better with his perfect formula for Transformers films. And the next one might have a single digit on the tomato meter, and I'm going to be right here to talk about it. And I'll get through it somehow. And I will see you again on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.